so cool. Just immediately inspiring creativity. Hello, it's Billy from Insanity Samples, and today we are checking out the all-new, ground-up rebirth of the Cello One, Cello One Volume 2. So the Solo Cello Volume 2 is a reimagining and rebirth of its namesake. We hit the studio again and recorded a plethora of beautiful, human-led, performance-laden, creativity-inspiring articulations, from expressive longs to sort of salto crescendos and ricochet crescendos, short versions of that, collegnos, pizzicatos, trills, tremolos, and really created a powerhouse of a solo cello library housed within our incredibly powerful and ever-evolving overlay threshold system, where you effectively just perform and the library reacts to you in turn, like you have the instrument in your own hands. And as a musician and a composer myself, I know how invaluable that is in your creative flow state, to not have to get bogged down with technical jargon and having to go through libraries and change key switches and really become more of a technician than a creative composer. So this library aims to remove that element and basically have you never have to touch key switches or ever have to get involved in the technical side of a library if you choose not to. It's all there if you want to dig in deeper, but ultimately the way this library works is once it's set for your preferences, how you like to perform, and you can just get in and play. Okay, let's take a listen to how the library sounds. We're loaded into Performance Mode 1. Where our overlay system makes use of the expressive longs, the sforzato crescendos, the ricochet crescendo where the bow bounces across the strings, and the staccatissimo used in infinity mode. Now with infinity mode, the staccatissimo, the shortest of short notes, become an accent to the expressive longs, creating the perfect way to do fast phrases or slurred quick passages in melodic turns, and loops back into the expressive longs in a really clever, intuitive way. Again, allowing you to just not touch anything on the technical side, just play. Let's take a listen. It's just so expressive and basically just easy to play. It's like you have the instrument in your hand. It's like you are reacting with a human musician in real time. And as you perform in your flow state, it just reads back an actual musical performance. I didn't use any key switches there, you'll notice. I didn't even engage the expressive dynamic control of the slider on the expressive longs. I just didn't need it. It was so human and nuanced as it was. Of course, if you wanted to dive into that stuff, it is there. It is accessible to you. The expressive slider is a great way to add additional dynamic arcs to your performance, though most dynamics are dealt with velocity in this library, again, just to be as performance-led as possible. Let's take a look at the individual articulations on offer. So if we switch into key switching mode, which is there for you if you did require it, we now have individual articulations that trigger once at a time, rather than stacking or being able to be used in a kind of flow-like method. So the expressive longs. really expressive, just a very human performance, basically. I made use of the expressive slider there to add additional dynamics just to show you how that works. It's pre-linked to your mod wheel, but you can unlink that by right-clicking it, removing that association, and wiggling any controller you want in the learn mode. Okay, on to the sforzato crescendos. These are awesome. Really powerful. You can hear the emotion being poured into every single note in this performance within the session. Okay, on to the ricochet crescendo where the bow bounces. Awesome sound. Onto the staccatos. These are quite long short notes. They have real body and a sense of existence to them. And they can be used with the true legato slur as well, because they work really nicely in that context. They're great for building phrases out. Just a really useful element to the library. Now the staccatissimo, at the moment they're in infinity mode, so you'll get the expressive longs alongside it once the clever scripting has done its thing. Such an interesting way to use the staccatissimo as an attack to add emphasis to the long notes. But if we turn off the infinity mode, we just get those super sharp, short notes. So cool. Just immediately inspiring creativity. Okay, onto the ricochet staccatos. So the shorter version of what we heard earlier. Very cool. All right, the coleños, where we're tapping the string with the back of the bow. Very cool. All right, pizzicato next. So we're picking the strings now. Awesome, sounds lovely. Now the Bartok pizzicato, named after its namesake, Bela Bartok, for the snapping-like sound where the string gets slapped against the fretboard. Let's take a listen to that. Awesome. The slides up now. Now this is the first articulation to make use of the scale link mode, where we have everything linked in to the key you are playing in for semitone and whole tone variations. You can link this hard to just semitones and just whole tones if you want to, but if you want to link it to a key, say I play quite often in E flat major, C minor, I might choose that key. And then my slide up would be a semitone if I hit the E flat. Whereas it'd be a whole tone if I hit a D. And these are performed long as well, so they have the entire down, up, down bowing system as well for that perfect kind of cylindrical, circular, everlasting and ever evolving note length. Awesome. And then the slides down are the same thing, just in reverse. We're sliding down to the triggered pitch now by a semitone or a whole tone. It's very cool. Side note, if we turn off true legato here, you can get some really awesome sounds if you play some chords. It's really cool. With the slides up, you can do the same thing, of course. Awesome. Okay, on to the trills. I'll turn true legato back on for a minute. So with the trills, again, this is adaptive to the key center you have chosen. So we'll get semitone or whole tone variations from the triggered pitch, either a semitone up trill or a whole tone up. The beauty of these is the way they were performed, really. There is a real true arc to it. It's exactly how you want a trill to be performed. It's the real incarnation of a human performance. You get that initial static start note, you get a slow build into the trill, and then this gentle tailing off again. Works perfectly in the middle of phrases, especially at like the turns of that kind of perfect cadence kind of environment where you want to go back to the root chord again. And you want to just do like a turn on the 7th degree of the scale, something just to take you home. Perfect for that. It's really beautiful. In fact, let's set that up quick. If we go into overlaying and we hit expressive longs and link a bunch of those up. So for the most part, we'll be getting just expressive long notes. If we want to hit the turn now, right there at your fingertips. I didn't use a single key switch. Once I'd set my overlay thresholds, I was just good to go. I could just play and the engine would interpret that for me as a musical performance. Okay, back to our key switching and the final sound, the tremolo. Awesome texture. Again, that outside of true legato mode really makes some interesting sounds for chords. Awesome. Okay, so that's the basic sound of the library. That's all the articulations involved. Let's have a quick look at the interface. Most of this you'll be familiar with if you're a owner of Shire Winds or Screaming Blues. These libraries have a similar aesthetic now as we kind of create an ecosystem around our libraries. So front and center, we have the performance view mode where we have our main articulations, our overlay thresholds. We've gone into detail about that already. So that's just what happens in our performance view. Then off to the left is our legato section. Now, again, this is familiar to most who have our libraries, though there is something new in here. So do pay attention here. There's something new that adds additional functionality. So we have the on-off for the true legato, which is linked to A0 and A sharp, the lowest A's on an 88 key keyboard. It's pretty much always that in our libraries unless we need that note for any reason. Then we go into our adaptive slider. This is a slider for good reason. You can assign this to any external hardware slider you want and make use in real time of switching between fast and slow if you need that level of control. Though if you don't, you can just use one of our adaptive modes, which basically does that work for you. So we can fix fast, fix slow on the legato sound. Let's just have a listen to how they function. So in our expressive longs, we get fast. And and fixed slow. Now, these legato transitions were recorded in their entirety, so not just the transition itself, and then that's used as kind of like a middling kind of piggyback to the next long note, which sometimes creates a slightly artificially sound. These are performed as a whole performance. So we go from the transition into a fully down, up, down, bowed long note, adding a huge amount of realism. Just beautiful. It just oozes humanity and a real sound of a human playing the instrument. Okay, so when we go into our adaptive modes, adaptive speed will link to the adaptive speed threshold. This works in milliseconds, so it's currently set to half a second. Anything played quicker than half a second will give you a fast transition, and anything played slower than half a second will give you a slurred, slow kind of Porter gliss type transition. When we move to velocity threshold, however, we have additional controls here. So this is set between 1 and 100 in velocity, and we can set the threshold to either above or below that threshold marker. So the white line signifies the actual threshold, and if we have the first button engaged on the left-hand side, everything below 80 in velocity will trigger a slow, slurred transition. With everything above that creating a fast one for instant changes. We can switch that to make it so that everything above 80 now becomes a slow, slurred transition, and everything below, or whatever threshold you set it at, it's set at 80 by default, but you can change that, will become a fast transition. The reason for this is if you use the overlay system and you top load the expressive longs, so you have like the slots 80, 90, 100 as the expressive longs, but you still want a slow, slurred transition on those notes, then you're going to need to be able to access those long slurred legatos in that higher register on the overlay thresholds, whereas you might have the sforzato crescendos in the lower section of the overlay threshold functionality and perhaps only want quick transitions there. So it works both ways. It just makes the legato merge better with the overlay system to create what is effectively just a fully performance-led engine without the requirement for key switching, without the requirement for changing things every single time you want a new phrase to sound different. It just reacts to you as the player. And of course, you can set up any incarnation you want of this overlay threshold, save a new snapshot, and you have your own self-made performance mode. We've just got two that are out the gate great to use and are very performance led and very intuitive, but you can build your own. You can use all of the articulations, you can spread it across all of those different overlay threshold parameters and have a field day with it. Really, it's your playground and you can jump in and do what you want. Okay, so on to the next page is the mixer page. Here we just have a basic volume, panning and purging control for each mic position. If you are requiring a lightweight library, so maybe RAM's an issue for you, or you have a huge template and you just don't have room for lots of microphones, then you can just purge all of these microphones off and put the mixer on, and that is basically a blend of the condenser, the ribbon and the pencil overheads. Or you can turn them all on and do whatever mix you want. The choice is yours there. The effects section, simple effects section with stereo, delay and reverb, convolution with a few selections there. This is pretty standardized across our libraries now. Ultimately, if you want additional effects, for the most part, people tend to use their own inside their DAWs. So we're just setting up some basic effects that make the instruments sound great straight out the bat, but of course you can turn all of these off completely and use your own anyway, as most people tend to do. The final thing to mention in this instrument, which is something we haven't really explicitly discussed in previous walkthroughs, is the inbuilt menus that we do now. If we click the information button, we basically get a scroll bar appear, and from here we can go through the entire instrument's functionality and everything that we need to make the library work. So if you have any questions or queries about the library, that's probably the best place to start. It stops you having to root through the folder hierarchy and find the documentation folder and read the manual from there. Obviously, you can if you want to, it's all there and it is accessible. However, a built-in menu just means that if you have a question, you're not quite sure about how the velocity threshold works, for example, just click that menu up, slide along to the appropriate page, and there it is, right within the instrument. You don't need to leave your DAW to find out more about the library. Okay, that has been an in-depth look at the Cello One Volume 2. If you are a owner of the Legacy Cello One, check your inbox because you're going to be getting a great upgrade offer. And for everyone else, we've obviously have our normal intro pricing. Head to insanitysamples.com for more information. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.